Amy called me, and she didn't have no idea. She just knew she had been told to call me, and I answered the phone, and she just said that, she says, we have a homeless problem in Keokuk, Iowa, and we need to do something about it, and I don't know what to do, and I'm not sure. We've got a group of people meeting. We got some things going on, and I kind of took it over and said from there, I said, well, listen, I've been doing this for a couple years now, and we kind of went through the same thing, and we started talking. And as we started talking, it became very apparent that we were supposed to bring it together and work together for God's good. So what you guys don't know is that I run a homeless shelter in Washington, Iowa. Tribulation and Trust Ministries has the Lighthouse Center. And we have been in operation for 2 years, going on our third. It's our third winter, I should say. So we're working on our third year. And we're totally supported by the community and by a thrift store that we operate. People donate items, and the thrift store supports our ministry. And right now we are at about 86% self-supportive. And it's been an amazing ride. Last year, we had some extra stuff for outdoor living, and so we sent a crew of guys on a road trip. I sent them out with a pickup and a pickup load of sleeping bags and coats and clothes and mittens and just stuff. And I sent them to Burlington, Keokuk, Fort Madison, Keokuk, and Ottumwa. And I asked them to search through the towns, look at the whole state of the town, pray over the town, and bring back to me what the homeless situation was like in each town. We prayed about that. They brought it back to me. They prayed about it. We talked about it. And Keokuk was the one that God put on my heart. And so I contacted the Chamber of Commerce here one time. Didn't get no feedback. And it was just kind of left. And I wasn't sure where to go. So I kind of let it die. And then I started looking at Ottumwa. And I started going over there, and I started making trips, looking for a building for the store, looking for a homeless shelter building, and just started looking for where we were supposed to expand. And it was apparent that we weren't finding anything. We just couldn't get nowhere. I was banging my head against the wall, and I got mad, and was driving back home, and I was like, God, I got to know. I need to know what it is you want me to do. I can't just keep wasting trips over here. I've got to know. I've got to understand. I've got to know exactly which town. Where am I supposed to be? I feel like a divided man. I need to know what's going on. And it was 2 days after that conversation with God that Amy called me. As soon as I got that phone call, I knew in my spirit that Keokuk, Iowa was the next place that we were supposed to go and help. And so through Amy's and my conversation, she invited me down to speak and come to the Keokuk Homeless Alliance support group and come and talk and go through it and discuss it. After that meeting, we knew that we could expand and we could work together and we could help the process down here. So in that point, we started meeting once a week on Friday mornings, bright and early, 7:30, and I would come down from up there, and there would be the 10 with the committee, and we started meeting weekly, seeking out how to pursue it from there. And I'm going to leave you hanging right there for a little bit. We have Brian and I know that. Eric, there we go, thank you. Eric Brotherton. Brian and Pastor Brian from here at the church, they're going to do a couple songs for us. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about where do we go from here. And a little bit more of my life and story. And I would just encourage you to relax and enjoy the evening. At some point here, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll go from there. Probably after they get done singing, we're going to take a little bit of a break so you can stretch your legs, and then we'll go from there. So I don't know if you guys have figured it out or not yet, but I'm not real polished. Tell you just a glimpse of my life. I'm 54 years old now. I spent the first 31 years of my life strung out on drugs and alcohol. I was a mess. 20 years ago, I was in prison and I gave my heart to Christ. And it changed me. And today, I couldn't even have dreamed of being where I'm at. I have a good life. Financially, I am not rich in my mind, but I am so rich, even financially, than a lot of people, because they don't even have what I have. But spiritually, I am so rich. I can't even begin to tell you. And I found out that the world isn't about me. You know, I grew up for the first 31 years, and it was about me. It was me, mine, mine. Mine, you know. And that's what I was about. And then as God started changing me and started teaching me what relationships was about, He started teaching me that it was about what could I do for others. The story that taught me that was I was in prison, and I was facing another 10 years, and I didn't really want to go do 10 years, and I was struggling. I was 20, I'll be 30 at the time, and 31, and I was struggling in my life trying to figure out what the answers were, and God was trying to teach me, and I really wanted to just sleep my time away. And so I started studying these guys that were going to the med line and getting meds so that they could sleep their time away, and I figured I would get the same way. And in the process of that, I had to go through a psychologist, see a psychologist, and get analyzed. And when I went in there and I told my story to her, after about 2 or 3 meetings, what she finally did was she brought it straight up to me and she said, "Listen, Mr. Brown, you don't need drugs." She said, "What you need to do is stop taking and start giving. You've been taking all of your life, and you need to quit taking and start giving." And those were probably the best words that I ever heard, because it just kind of pulled me up short, and it made me think. And I thought, what do I have to give? And she said, "You'd be surprised what you have to give. Now get out of my office." And I went back to my dorm where I was staying at in the jail. It's up in Des Moines. And I sat down on that bed in the dorm, and about that time, an 18-year-old kid came up to me, and he sat next to me, and he started complaining about he had 3 months to do, and his girlfriend had left him. And this was my fifth time to prison. And I was like, I'm looking at 10 years, and who knows what, and I don't even want to listen to you in my head is what I was thinking. But he just kept rattling on about it, and I let him sit there and rattle on, and all of a sudden he stood up, and he said, "Thanks, Brown," and he walked off. And as he did that, God spoke to me and said, "See, you just helped that kid." And I hadn't even listened to him. And I really felt bad because I thought, man, I could have done a whole lot better if I'd have realized I was doing something. And that was a turning point in my life. It was a turning point where God started showing me that I could be useful for people instead of not useful. I just had to listen. I didn't even have to have all the answers. I just had to listen. And a lot of times they would untangle their own problems and get it all sorted out, because some people just need to speak it out loud to untangle it. And they have to have somebody to speak out loud to, and they're not comfortable talking to God. And so they need a person to sit there and let them untangle it. And we deal with that a lot in the world of dealing with homelessness. And after I got out of prison, started working on rebuilding my life, and God just took me by the hand and carried me through it. And I ended up going back to college and taking a 2-year degree, chemical dependency counseling. And I never did get certified after that. I have just been working in the ministry pretty much ever since, and just do what God wants me to do and use the scriptures. Now I'm the pastor of Grace Community Church at the same time that we're doing the homeless shelter in Washington. And the homeless shelter in Washington has helped our community in huge ways because we kept it non-denominational. So it's an entity of its own. Tribulation and Trust Ministries is the umbrella that oversees everything. And Tribulation and Trust Ministries is a non-profit organization. And we just do our thing, and all the churches come alongside of us and help us and assist. And we get everybody involved in the community as much as we can, whether they believe in Jesus or not, and they just want to help. We have platforms and places for them to help and volunteer and be involved. The community understands we love Jesus, but they don't give us any grief about it, and we don't give them any grief about not loving Jesus. It's up to them. It's no big deal. It's a choice that each one of us gets to make. And so I try not to get too pushy, but I don't pull back either. And so that's something that you'll know about me as we go forward. So in Washington, what happened there is we found a building. We were a group of people, and we found a building, and those people ended up renting that building to us. We're still in it today. It's an old schoolhouse church that was empty, and we started renting that building. We knew we needed money, and we weren't sure where it was going to come from. One donor came up and gave us $25,000 to start. That's what we started with, was that one $25,000 donation. And we started doing some renovations with it. The building was almost move-in ready. It needed some bathrooms. The problem with it when we got into it was that the water had froze. Nobody had ever prepared the building. And so we replaced a whole bunch of commodes and urinals and plumbing and so on and so forth. That was the main thing. And then we had to do a bunch of painting. Other than that, I remodeled one bathroom and add a little bit, and that was it. So it was pretty easy to move in and get ready. Then when we started the thrift store, that started with a little storefront up on Main Street, and we quickly outgrew it. We knew that there was no way that it could do what we needed to do. And so we expanded and started having yard sales at the county fairgrounds. We rented a building from the county because the COVID was prevalent, and nobody was having any activities, and they didn't have the fair that year, so we went ahead and started up this huge yard sale. And we just started operating and running, and it started bringing us the first weekend we did it, it brought in $1,400, and I was like, hey, this has got potential, and so on and so forth. And so we just kept doing it, and it kept showing us that it had potential. Well, then this year at the fair, we had to move it, and we had to move into another building. We found another building to rent it, and finally we realized that we needed our own building. The donations came in too fast, so fast that I can't even sell it all in the store. Some of it I end up selling bulk by bales. We bale clothes, we bale cardboard. It all brings in, there's a market for it out there, and it all brings in money back to the ministry. 100% of the proceeds come back to the ministry. And our budget is typically around $350,000 to $400,000 a year up there. And this year alone, we decided we had to buy a building, and because we're paying $2,700 a month in rent, and so we needed, for our 2 locations in the store, and so we needed to buy a building, and we weren't sure how the community was going to do that. And God moved on it, and people came together in the community, and one of our community members, money started coming in. $40,000 came in really, really fast toward this building. It was a 22,000 square foot warehouse, and they wanted $350,000 was our offer price they accepted. And so $40,000 came in pretty fast. And then one of our donors gave us a $100,000 match grant. And that was amazing. And so that brought in another $100,000 on top of that pretty quick. So we were at $240,000 really fast. And then we were at $300,000. And it just kept coming. We were able to buy the building and start the process of doing some renovations on it and make it up. So now we have a building that we own. We're not having to pay rent anymore. And we own it. And it's got an 8,000 square foot thrift store in the middle of it. And then it also has room to bale clothing, sort donations, do all of that. And then we also have a food pantry that's going to be designed in one end of it, because part of what we do at the same time as sheltering the homeless is we also supply food. We have a food pantry that's available. It's available 7 days a week between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. by appointment. And that way, no matter anybody's work schedule, no matter anybody's income, if they need food, they can come get it. And they don't have to worry about it. Because many times there's people in middle class that are struggling just as much as the homeless. And we don't want them to get homeless. We don't want them to end up in that bind. So the best thing we can do is if we can provide them with food and they can put that money into other things, then that's what we do. So we don't have any requirements or anything like that. They fill out a little bit of a paperwork, so if there was ever a recall, we could notify them. And then we made the hours available to where they could come at any time of the day. And there's no reason for anybody in Washington County and the surrounding area to ever be hungry again. No need for it whatsoever. And we'd like to do the same thing here. We're planning on recreating everything here. And so I'm excited about where we're headed. We have some plans in place, and we're working through the process on this building right here. There's 30,000 square feet of warehouse in the back that's not being used. But to lease it, we have to do improvements. We have to lease it, we have to put a firewall up, we have to put a restroom back there, and we have to do some things to it. Probably going to cost me anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 to get that done. As we're working through that process, we haven't signed anything yet. We believe that God's leading us in that direction, but we see financial things hurdles that are going to have to be done on both our side and the side of the church. And so we're asking God to intervene and to help us and to make it work to where we can have that space and we can bring a thrift store in here and make it operate because of what we've experienced up there. Right now, the thrift store that I have in operation in my area is bringing in, on the average, $800 a day. I'd like to see it get to $1,000, but we're not quite there yet. In the new location, we've been open for 2 months, and we're on our second month, and it's gradually increasing. People travel from all over to come to our thrift store. It's amazing. We keep the prices really, really low because that's makes it go. We can, like I said, we can't stay ahead of the donations. Once you open up for donations, the donations come so fast. It's amazing and deep. God has provided a way to where we can take the financial strain off of it and we can create a long-term, self-sustainable homeless shelter. There's other ways that we can do it in the process of that. I recycle cardboard. We take all the recycled cardboard. We have the space to bale it and store it until we get a full semi-load. There's businesses in our community that are giving me their baled cardboard that they're already baling, giving it to me for free because they have to pay people to come get it because as just 1 or 2 bales, they don't have storage space and it goes, they can't store it and so the price is down and they have to pay to get rid of it. So they donate it to us, we come and pick it up and then we store it till we get a semi-load and then we can sell it for $7,000, $8,000 for a semi-load. Each one of those bales has about a $60 value. We got to sit on it for a little bit, but I don't mind sitting on 3 $20 bills over in the corner. It's all right. But there's a way that we can use our resources that we already have if everybody works together. Volunteers are key for all of this. We need volunteers, and we need as many of them as we can get once we start rolling and operating and making that thrift store work. That's what makes our thrift store a success, is we have a couple of paid positions, and then the rest are all volunteers. And people that from the shelter come and work and help while they're staying at the shelter. We run the shelter, and the shelter is open from only 4 p.m. usually in the evening until 8 o'clock in the morning. And 8 o'clock in the morning, they have to go somewhere. We encourage them to come hang out with us and work in the shelter, work in the store. And then 45 to 60 days as we're helping them get their ID. We're helping them get everything going. As we get that stuff going, then they will get used to the rhythm of being up during the day and eating good and healthy. And we can get them to the point where then they can hold a job. If they stick it out between 45 and 60 days, then I have worked agreements with some of the employers in our area, and they will go to work. We can put them to work and get them a job and get them going. And typically, if I keep them clean and sober for that 45 to 60 days, then they have got enough ground under their feet that they can. And then we also have financial counseling that's available, and we can help them as they start getting their money and they start working things, because many times train wreck happens when they get too much cash in their hand. And I myself personally am dangerous when I get too much cash in my hands, all right? I mean, I understand it completely. And so it's always good to have structure, but it takes time for people that don't have any structure to learn structure. And it's not an easy process, so you have to have patience. For me, I was a habitual criminal. I was spending my life away in prison. The 12 years in prison that I spent, 22 felony convictions, in and out, over and over and over again. And the reason it was being because I was get out here where I had no structure, and I couldn't operate. I would self-destruct. And I would set myself up and do something stupid and go right back to prison, because in there I had just enough structure where I could be productive and I'd be okay, and everybody respected me. And so I could survive inside, but I couldn't survive outside because I couldn't make these decisions. But God, as He took my old heart of stone and He replaced it with a heart of compassion, started changing me, and by His Spirit, He started helping me be able to make decisions. And today I get to make all kinds of decisions, and I can do it by His strength and His strength only. And I know it's by His strength because I know who I was prior. And we want to offer that to everybody. Everybody can have that. So they can stay in our shelter up to 2 years if needed, 3, some of them. Many of them come into full-time positions. We will hire them right there in it. Many of my staff members are people that were homeless prior to coming to our shelter. And then after they prove themselves to a point, we put a shirt on them and say, all right, and we train them and give them a chance to really prove themselves. It's amazing when you give responsibility to people like that, it's amazing how many of them rise to the challenge. And they like the structure, and they like the responsibility, and they like the fact that they can do something productive. So I'm going to stop right there for a minute. We're going to stretch our feet a little bit. I want you to do some more. So what I would like to do now is start finishing up, tidying things up. As you know, I told you about the thrift store, and we're planning on using this space, and we're working on that. If you've noticed, I haven't mentioned anything about a homeless shelter yet at this point. And I would like to tell you a little bit of what I can tell you about where we're at on that process. So we have been meeting. I have been coming down here and I have been looking at buildings. I've looked at buildings on Main Street. I have looked at buildings over by on the south side of town. I have looked at buildings all over the place, and I have not found but one building that's available that is almost move-in ready that we could do for the size that we need. And I have struggled. I would love to find an old church or something or other that was available that had about 10,000 square feet and had the ability for me to put 3 or 4 showers in it. That would be ideal. But at this point, I haven't been able to find anything like that. We did find a building, and it is for sale. It's not on the market, and I'm not going to tell you where it is or what it is at this point because I shared on the last one and it disappeared. Somebody bought it out underneath me before I could get it bought, and I'm not going to do that. But I want you to know that we have a building that we have found. We think that it is suitable for us. The problem with it is the zoning isn't quite right. And so we have to meet with the city on the zoning. And I have a meeting with the city at 4 o'clock on the 24th, I believe it is. I have to look at my calendar, but it's either the 24th or the 25th. I have a meeting with the city to discuss the zoning. If the zoning comes back that we could buy that building, then that would be a blessing. The asking price of that building is $115,000, which is a very fair price for what it is. We would be able to house between 30 and 40 homeless people there. And we would also have an apartment for our live-in staff. And so that would be a beautiful, beautiful spot. And I think it'll work. We'd have to put some bathrooms in it. Remove a couple of walls. But we don't have to do anything to the outside of the structure. All we have to do is some stuff to the inside. So right now, what we're looking at to get started with the project here as far as the thrift store, and then there, $300,000 would be having us well on our way. And so far, the community has raised $7,000. That's where we're at. And we're doing good. I love it. I'm excited about it. So there's several ways that you can donate. Obviously, one of the ways you could donate was when you bought tickets to come here. And you came tonight, and so that was a donation. That silent auction is another way that you could have donated. And he'll be announcing the winners of that in a little bit. The buyer of this picture up here will be a way that you'll be able to donate. If you would like to just write a check and donate, you can do that. Right here's a basket. Tribulation and Trust Ministries is who you write your check out. Tribulation and Trust Ministries. And then down in the bottom left-hand corner, if you would write Keokuk Homeless, that would be good. Any money that is raised in Keokuk, Iowa, stays in Keokuk, Iowa. We ain't going nowhere else with it. Tribulation and Trust Ministries does not need your money to support our operating costs. We're good. But Tribulation and Trust Ministries is the organization that oversees everything. We have a bookkeeper in our office in Washington, and she does an amazing job. And she keeps separate booking accounts for there and here. And then we also have a food pantry in Martinsburg, Iowa. So there's another food pantry over there. And so we keep all that stuff separate. And whatever money is raised in whatever area, it stays right in that area to cover the costs of that area. And so it works out that way. And then Latta Harris oversees, they do all of our accounting, taxes and everything, and all that stuff that has to be done, all the file, they do all of that for us, and they donate that to us. I don't know if you guys have a Latta Harris down here or not, but we have them up in Washington and Iowa City and areas and stuff. But there's the accountants that do that for us. We believe strongly in financial clarity. If you ever want to look at our books, if you ever want to look at anything, it's open to you. It's open to the public. We would gladly share it with you and show it with you. I talk openly about how everything is done. I'm a very open person. There's no reason for not. Just in case you're wondering what this illustrious position pays me to do all that, I make $43,000 a year. And I live off of that pretty good. My house is paid for, my cars are paid for. It's the only way I can do it, but I do it. God's been good to me, and He cares for me, and I don't need to be any richer than that. My kids and my wife and I live all right. And we got Jesus more than anything, so we're pretty happy. And so that's where we're at on that. We have a few other paid employees, and most of them aren't making what they deserve either. And it's okay, because we're all happy inside, and we all love Jesus, and we know we're doing it for the kingdom, and we're doing it for the right reasons. So